Speaking of policy and pressure, let's cross the globe again. From Canadian workplace to U.S. China trade tensions and the de minimis debate under Trump. De minimis is a Latin term meaning something is too minor to matter. In U.S. trade law, it refers to a threshold for low value imports, packages that are too small to require full customs inspection or tariffs. Essentially, if a package is under a certain value, it could enter the country duty free and with minimum oversight. For decades, this system existed quietly, mostly as practical efficiency measure. Customs officials realized that collecting duties on very small shipment often cost more than the revenue generated, so Congress set a low value exemption. Originally, this threshold was just a few dollars, gradually rising over decades to account for inflation. $1, then $5, then $200 by the 1990s. The goal was simple: speed up trade, reduce paperwork, and focus enforcement on high value imports. For decades, it worked. Imports were mostly gifts, personal items, or traveler shipment. The law was never intended to govern industrial scale global e commerce. Everything changed in the 2000s with the rise of online shopping, global logistics, and mass manufacturing in China. Companies realized that they can sell individual items directly to consumers anywhere around the world profitably. In 2016, the US raised the de minimis threshold from $200 to $800. Again, the intention was efficiency to speed trade and help consumers. This created an enormous unintended consequences. It became a massive loophole for Chinese e-commerce companies. Companies like Shein, Temu, and AliExpress built entire business models around it. By shipping millions of small packages under $800 directly to US consumers, they could avoid tariffs, custom paperwork, and many inspections. Meanwhile, American retailers importing bulk shipments still faced full tariffs and oversight. The result was asymmetric trade advantage. US companies were undercut, consumers were offered cheap prices, but enforcement agencies were overwhelmed, unable to inspect more than a fraction of the packages. And as volumes exploded, so did the risks. Counterfeit goods, unsafe electronics and cosmetic, forced labor linked products, and even illicit substances like fentanyl came through. By the early 2020, over half of all de minimis packages entering the US came from China, flooding the market in a way that the law never intended. Donald Trump administration moved decisively to end the exemption for China and Hong Kong. Packages from China no longer qualify for de minimis exemption. Tariffs now apply. Customs inspection increase. Chinese companies' cheap direct-to-consumer shipping model are disrupted. The administration justified this action as a matter of fairness, enforcement, and national security. The loophole allowed Chinese companies to undercut American businesses while also creating a channel for dangerous or illegal goods. The consequences are already visible. Some Chinese companies are shifting inventory to US based warehouses. Customers face higher prices and longer delivery times. Hong Kong postal services even halted certain shipment to the US to avoid tariffs and rejections. For consumer, this may mean fewer ultra cheap imports by potentially stronger domestic competition. For American businesses, it's an opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Why does this all matter? The de minimis law began as a small, clerical efficiency measure. Over a decade, it involved in a global trade vulnerability. China exploited it, e-commerce scaled it, and enforcement agencies were overwhelmed. Now the Trump administration is closing the loophole, not quietly, but deliberately. This is more than just a small technical change. It represents a shift in global trade policy, a recognition that laws written for the 20th century cannot manage 21st century supply chains. And here's the reality that brings all of this home. Before these changes, the US was flooded with inexpensive import parcel. More than 1 billion small packages entered the country under the de minimis rule in a single year, most from China, up from just over 134 million a decade ago, a surge more than 600%. A lot of what Trump is doing actually makes sense from a business perspective. He understands, markets, margins, and leverage. He wants to make America great again, and he sees a system where Chinese companies were exploiting a loophole, getting rich off American consumers while undercutting domestic producers. Closing that loophole is a step forward. But let's be clear about the deeper issue here. And it's not just tariffs or trade policy, it's how much Americans consume compared with the rest of the world. The United States is the largest consumer economy on the planet. In 2023, American consumer spending totaled almost 19 trillion, dwarfing every other nation's numbers, more than twice China's total consumer spending of roughly 7 trillion. And that's in raw dollars, not adjusted for population size or income differences. Per person, the difference is even sharper. The average American spend more than 45,000 per year on consumption, more than twice that Europeans spend on average. And because of this consumer culture, US household spending makes up nearly 68% of the entire economy, a much higher share than in major competitors like the EU or China. That means the global marketplace, including giant companies elsewhere, depends heavily on American being willing to open their wallets. The world's producers follow US demand, not the other way around. Here's the point most people aren't thinking about. American consumers are not just big spenders. They are disproportionately big spenders compared to other countries. China has more than 4 times the population, yet total consumer spending is still a fraction of the US total. Europeans are hundreds of millions of people strong, yet their spending per person is far lower. So when I say Americans aren't wise consumer, I don't mean stupid. We are the prime market that companies chase after because we are willing to pay, even if cheaper doesn't always mean better, and even if those dollars are enriching foreign companies more than our own. Trump's move doesn't just protect American businesses, it forces the market to play fair. It pushes towards accountability and a healthier trade, even if it means higher prices at checkout. And that is a perspective worth considering in the age of global e commerce. American consumers' activity drives profit like almost no other nations on earth. And we should rethink not just where we spend, but why we spend at all.